Welcome back, Fast Monty's Garage. Today we're going to discuss paint correction, otherwise called scratch removal, like swirl mark removal from washing too much, etc. on two-stage paint. So you have to have clear coat. Do not ask me about single stage paint that's just raw color from the old days. I don't know. Ask someone else. Now, how did I get in this predicament, you might be asking? Well, several episodes ago or playlists ago, I rebuilt the engine. And when I had the engine out, I was using these fender covers, you know, the vinyl covers, the pad underneath. Well, yeah, it scratched the hell out of my fenders. So don't do what I did, or you'll be in this predicament quicker than you thought. Make sure you put like a furniture pad underneath those fender covers. That will save you a ton of pain. But now that we're here, I might as well show you guys what I like to use. Now, several of you guys have your own method, and I'm not here to change your method. If you learn something, great. If there's something that works really well for you, leave a comment below. I will also leave part numbers for everything I'm using. Most of it's from my Amazon shop. They're also going to be below as well. This is not sponsored. This is stuff I like using because I painted my own car. I'm pretty particular about what touches the clear coat. Now, having said that, when I was removing orange peel, that process, I used a 3M product called Trizact. It's a different subject matter. I'm not going to talk about it today, but that turned me on to their polishing compounds. So right over here, we have 1, 2, 3 steps. So basically cutting, buffing, and polishing. Each one has a corresponding pad. So white is a white pad, black, blue, etc. Now I use that for general swirl removal. And after that, what I used to do is use a dual action polisher to apply like a synthetic wax. And then on top of that, I would use real wax. Very labor intensive, as you might well imagine. Now we're gonna do something a little different. I'm gonna go through these 3 products today and how to use them. But next episode, I'm going to use ceramic coating. Yeah, so before you do ceramic coating, you need all the scratches removed. At least 99% of them or 98% of them. So that's what our object is today. And like I mentioned, the scratches and the fenders are annoying the hell out of me. Yeah, so while we're sitting here, let's go through what I typically use on the table here. So besides the polishes, I like to get a bottle of water, squirt bottle, another squirt bottle with 50-50 solution alcohol, rubbing alcohol, and water. Wax and grease remover. This is beautiful because you need to take off whatever layer is currently on the car before you start rubbing on it. Then I got a Sure Shot can here that I put the wax remover in so I can easily spray it down. Very handy. You're going to need a plethora of microfiber cloths, maybe even a couple terry cloths, because in areas where you can't reach with an orbital, you can actually do the old-fashioned way and wrap the towel around your fingers, and I'll go through that too. Another very important thing is get a pad cleaner. It's just a brush, super cost-effective. It works great, especially if you want to use your pads over and over again. It'll get more life out of your pads. Now, on the DA I mentioned, it depends on the product you're going to use. Whoever you buy pads from, you can look up what pads they recommend for your product. Lastly, get yourself a really good LED super bright flashlight for scratch detection in between steps. Because if you haven't figured out already, this is like sandpaper. This is, if you can imagine, this is like 2,500 grit sandpaper, 5,000 grit, 7,500 to 10,000 grit. That's how you have to think about it in your head, because if you go past a step and you can't get a scratch out, you have to go back a level and to get the scratch out, back another level if you still can't get the scratch out. That's always something to keep in mind. Now, having said all that, one last thing I have to say is this is unavoidable. You're going to be slinging product all over the garage. So make sure you cover or remove what you don't want to get sling on, because these products here, these 2 especially, if they dry on something, it's almost impossible to get off. That's what the 50-50 alcohol solution's for. It helps with that. So your wife's car, get it out of the garage, because we don't need any excuses for our spouses to tell us not to go in the garage anymore. Yeah, okay, enough of that. Let's get to the hood. Let me show you how to put this stuff down and take it off. Okay, a couple more housekeeping tips before we get started. One, that sling gets everywhere. I'm not kidding. So I have my nostrils covered, not these nostrils, those nostrils are filled so I don't get sling on the engine. Mine are open. Some of you might have fake ones. Cover those as well, because if you get sling in there, it's very hard to get out. Sometimes you don't see it until the next day. I also covered my windshield with my furniture pad. And the other thing to keep in mind is you want to be in as bright light as possible. If you're outside, even better, but don't be in the sunlight. You have to be in the shade and still use that flashlight when you can to check for scratches. The other thing I also do is I have dedicated towel colors per product. So the red one, I've used the degreaser on. I've already done the hood twice. You could even use that. I would use the same one like to dust the next day, because this is going to be like a 2-day process. The second day, I'll come back and either use the last towel I used, like let's say it's the white polishing towel. I'll use that towel to dust to get all the debris off, so you don't get any more debris in your pad. So having said that, let me show you really close what we do on a seam or in between body panels so we don't take off any paint. Here's a great example of several different areas you have to be careful of when you're using your orbital polisher. So here's a pad example. So your pad is going to be rotating clockwise, sometimes at a high rate of speed. So, hey, and there's an example of the debris left off of a pad. So you have to get that stuff off the car before you start any process. So anyway, when we're polishing, I'll point this out when I actually do it, you don't want to be going up against an edge like that. That will take that paint off. It's called burning your paint. And that term comes from because it overheats and just takes the paint off. It's not going to start smoking, so you won't know. So you have to be very careful and very diligent about that, especially in seams like this. So if you're just starting out and you're not comfortable with the process, this is where that green painter's tape comes in handy. Just cover that seam. So if you come up to that with your pad, you're not going to get in there and take off the paint on those edges. So that's a really quick trick to prevent any accidents from happening. You could even cover these seams like this one here, this panel to bumper seam. The other trick, which I am going to do, is I'm going to crack the hood. So I'm going to open the hood so the hood is higher than the fender and the bumper, and I will do all of these panels separately. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to show you some pad technique here. So I have the hood cracked a little bit, like I said. This is going to rotate clockwise. You do not want to hit the edge, the leading edge of anything you're polishing with that rotation, because it will take the paint off. You want to flip it this way, but still rotating this way, but rotating off the edge. I hope that makes sense for you guys. I'm sure you'll get used to it. Now before I go after this, let me show you how to prime your pad. The reason I say that is never ever start a dry pad on a new surface. All right, priming the pad is exactly what it sounds like. We want to take whatever polish we're using at this stage, and we're going to put it all over the pad. I'm also going to add a little water and start rubbing it in. This is the first time using this pad, so I'm going to probably do it a little bit more, especially around the edges. The middle is not going to really touch the paint, only this edge, so that's all you have to worry about. And then throw that glove away. All right, here we go. What we're going to do is we're going to work in a 2 foot by 2 foot square section at a time. And since this is the very first application with this pad, it's going to be a little bit more wet than normal. So we're going to go a little slower. So I'm going to add a little quarter size drop per square foot. And I'm going to take my polisher and I'm just going to blend it. I don't have it on yet, obviously. I'm just going to blend it around. You're going to kind of slowly start it. Whoa, and there you go. Perfect example of slinging your shit everywhere. Wow. I'm going to clean that up real quick and get back to it. Okay, so that reminds me, wear crappy clothes too, because it gets on your clothes, it stains your clothes. I have crappy clothes on, so I'm good there. I don't care about all this because that's a spot I still have to do. And that's the risk of brand new polish and how it's wet. So back to business. So I'm going really slow. It's obviously too wet. This is a great example of having it too wet. And I can even wipe some off this panel, put it on the nose. I just noticed the colossal mess I made it right in here in the hood scoop area. I'm gonna wipe that off because if it dries in that crack, it's gonna be almost impossible to get out of there. And I can just rub it in like it's polished too. Which reminds me, this area you're not gonna be able to hit with your polisher. So this is exactly what you do. You can actually take a terry cloth, take some of your polish, and you can actually do the old-fashioned way. Little elbow grease. Okay, so once you get to the point where your pad's dry enough, which is going to be the way it will be for the rest of the process. I mean, this is my worst case scenario. I can't believe I did that, but great example for you guys. Once you get to this point and you're still working with that semi-dry stuff, the pad will actually start taking it off for you. Now you can take your buffing cloth, take off the excess, and you should start to see the pattern that this pad made in your clear. So it almost looks like a swirl mark, and you'll get used to the pattern once you do it more and more and more, because the next pad will remove those scratches and make a slightly different pattern. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish the hood, and then we'll get to the gray pad. Okay, changing pads, I also changed adapters. I just don't have the white pad of this. This is now the gray one. Look, it's two-sided, and it just pushes right on, like that. You change sides, flip it over, just like that. Love it. So, go ahead and prime it like we did before, and we'll get to work on that same section on the hood. The gray product, I like to work actually a little bit better than the white. The white gets everywhere. So now we're onto the gray. I'm okay with a little bit of white residue left over and spots. You can kind of see a little haze in the clear coat, which is good. So 4 dabs of gray, spritz of water. My pad is primed. I'm gonna spread it in. It's going slowly at first. Still same angle of attack. As it starts to dry, you can kind of pick up the speed. Now as it starts to dry, as you can see, it's actually removing itself with the pad. You don't really need to use the towel that much on this round. If you have any excess, use your towel before it dries, and you can start seeing the scratch removal process already in effect. Now's the time you take your flashlight and start doing some quality control. So I can still see some scratches in there that are probably a little too big for this pad. So I'm gonna do it one more time, see if I can get those out. If I can't, I have to go back to the white pad. Guys, I was halfway through doing the hood with the gray pad, and I realized the water bottle I was using had soap in it. No wonder it's taking so long. So now this one has normal, just water in it. So 4 dabs, 1 squirt. You notice that time, and make a pass, I come back, it takes it right off. That's exactly how the gray stuff should work. Oh my God, that's soap. Okay, time for step 3, the blue pad. There's a big difference between the gray and the blue. For one, make sure you have no more vertical scratches, typically from washing your car. You would still see a little bit of swirl in there, which is good. But this time, unlike the gray pad, where we let it dry and we let the pad take it off, we do not let this stuff dry. So I'm going to do the same drill, 4 dabs, maybe a tiny bit of water, but I'm going to work it in. I'm going to start with some firm pressure, and then I'm going to even it out. I'm going to start lightening the load and actually leveling the pad. So the pad this time is going to be almost fully contacting the panel on a really few light sweeps. And then I'm going to remove the pad and then use my towel and take off the excess. I'll try a dab of water. The first round's always the funnest because I don't know how much water to use. So just going to work it in. Start picking up the RPMs a little bit. Still have a little bit of pressure going on. This time I'm okay with going in there because it's going to be wet and I can just take it out. Now I'm letting the polisher use its own weight. Get my dedicated towel and start taking it off. You shouldn't have to scrub it off because it's still wet. And your paint should start to pop now. Maybe give a little squeak like it's working. And you're going to go through a lot of towels. So I have like 4 of these towels for the whole car because it's just going to start piling up in your towel. Do your quality control check. Do it again if you have to. Go back a step if you have to. But that's how you do the final step. Like a mirror. Yeah, I love it. So a couple things to note, guys and girls. The #1 product. You saw how that slung everywhere. I was like, holy crap. Yeah, it's because I don't use this very often. I actually usually just go to the #2 pad, the gray stuff, and then do #3. That usually takes out all my swirls. I was showing you the 1, 2, 3 step, and this, sorry, not that one. This one is so old that I think it's too liquid. Like when it came out, it should be more pasty. So that's my fault. I haven't used it in a long time, but it should not be slinging like that. That was crazy sling. Okay, so #2. I would get yourself some of this stuff. It's a cleaner for your pads. So after you're done with your pad, you spray this on. It smells like oranges, but it's potent. Make sure you do it outside. I already pissed off the wife because I did it in the laundry room, so don't do that. But this stuff's really good. I'll leave links for everything I used below. If you guys have a recommended polisher or compounding solution that you like and you've had really good results, I'm all ears. I'm always looking for something that's easier to do and gives you even better results. So until next time, listen, here's the deal. I'm going to try ceramic coating, the DIY stuff. So I've never done it before. We'll see how it goes. But you know the drill. Build them fast, drive them faster. See ya.